Let's work on the So Sweet Puzzle Mystery Quilt from Cotton Cuts. We're going to be working on Clue 6 of the Apple Cider colorway in small and the Churro colorway in large. So let's get started. So here are what the colorways look like, and I am loving the way both of them are turning out. They are both art gallery fabrics, and I'm going to start with the small apple cider and we'll work through that one. What I like to do first is open the package, of course, but I like to sort out all of my pieces just so I can see what I need to be working with really easily. So I just divide them all out and sort them onto a design board. And this is a good time too to just make sure you have all of the pieces you need and make sure everything is here. Your pattern will show on it how many of each one you should have in the package. All right, and this comes in the first shipment, the pamphlet, and it will tell you what all of the fabrics are labeled so that it's really easy to tell which one you need when you're looking at the pattern. So make sure you keep this because it does not get mailed again. So I'm just going to put all of the pieces together that need to get sewn together. We're going to be making a lot of half square triangles at first here. So I'll just get those all together and then I will move all the pieces I won't be sewing right away off of the design board. So like I said, a lot of half square triangles, and the pattern is really good about showing you which ones you're sewing together. So I did notice that some of these are going to be sewn to that more plum fabric. So I'm counting to get the ones that are needed for each one. And the squares and rectangles are all going to be used later on in the pattern. So I'm just going to move those off the design board, and then I will be heading over to the sewing machine to sew these right sides together. So I just like to chain piece these right side together. So I just sew them all one right after the other. It makes quick work of it. Just sew along the edge, and that clipped corner makes it really nice and easy to know where to line them up. So I'm just going to use my handy tool here to cut all the threads, holding all these together. It makes really quick work of it. This is thread cutters from Gypsy Quilter, and I love it. All right, so now I'm just going to press all my pieces. The pattern does give you directions on which way to press your seam. Be sure to follow it because it will really help you piece all of these together. It really helps reduce the bulk if you follow the pressing instructions. All right, so I have them pressed, and you can see the way that I press the seams. On these, it happened to be all toward the darker fabric, which makes it really nice because then it kind of helps hide that seam there, but that is not always the case. So here is the first layout that I'm going to be sewing, and I will get all these sewn up. I'm not going to show recording all of those steps, but I'm going to get them sewn up, and now you can see how those pieces look. So I'm just going to press them per the instructions. The first block here is pressed toward the square, not the half square triangle. So I'm pressing the seam in that direction. And I'll do that with all the rest of them off camera. But the second one, we're pressing the seam toward that center rectangle. And you can see there it's pressed toward the center rectangle, and I'll do the same with the rest of them later. And for this one, 3 of the seams are pressed to the left and then 2 to the right. And don't worry, it does show all of that in the instructions because that would be hard to remember, but yeah, so that's how those are pressed, and I'll do all the rest of them off camera as well. So there is how they all look so far. So there are 2 of those and then 4 of the rest of them. And so I'm just going to show you how they are laid out. So you're kind of making like what looks like a bow with the plum fabric. To me, it looks like a bow. So I have 2 of them on top and then 2 on bottom because we're making 2 finished blocks. Then these are going along the side, so there are 2 on each side. And then these final 2 are at the top. So I'm going to sew all these together, and I will follow the pressing instructions along the way. But here they are all finished. I really love this fabric. It is just so pretty. I cannot wait to see this quilt all finished, and we're coming up on the finish line too. So I'm excited about that, to see how they all turn out. It's fun seeing the difference between the small and the large finally too, because last time I just did a small only. All right, so let's work on the churro. I'm just going to go through the same steps that I did before. I'm going to sort out all of the fabric onto a design board just so I can see, you know, how it all looks, make sure I have all of the fabric and all of that. So on this one, the difference is we're going to have these 4 other blocks that we didn't do with the small design. So the first 2 that I'm going to make are going to be the exact same as the small apple cider. And then we have those 4 other blocks that are a little bit different. So I'm just going to sort all these out, and it's going to be obviously a little more fabric than before because I'm doing that larger quilt this time around. So I have a few extra blocks to do. And some of these rectangles have a few different ones here. So that is all the fabric that I'm going to be working with this time around. So this fabric is called Bookish, and it's from Art Gallery Fabrics. So I'm just going to do the same thing where I pair all of my half square triangles that I'm going to be sewing first together, and then there are going to be some squares that I sew together as well, because I looked a little farther in the pattern to see that some squares are going to be sewn into 2 patches and then 4 patches later. So I'm just going to do the same thing where I pair these up right sides together and just chain piece all of the blocks that I can for the first couple steps. So some of the squares and things that I'm sewing together are later in the pattern, but I just like to look ahead and get as much sewing done that I can at once, and then press all of those and, you know, kind of bulk do sew some of these. All right, so you can see that this board has pretty much that same layout as the apple cider small block. And then here I have those smaller, or those extra blocks that we're going to be making for the large layout. So it's a little bit different, but it's a really easy, this one's a lot of squares, so it makes it a lot easier to sew. You're not doing any of those half square triangles or anything. So when I did lay out all these, I noticed that I was missing 2 squares. So I just sent a quick email to support there, and they will ship those out to me. So no problem at all. So I won't be able to finish all of those, but I will when I get them. So here are the finished blocks, and there is the different layout from the small. I only have 2 of them and not the 4 that I need, but I will update those when I get them. All right, let me know what you think of Clue 6. I really am loving both of these. See you next time. Bye.